Hey everyone, I'm going to be demonstrating this Ruby on Rails webpage called Today's Meal. It was built with Ruby on Rails, HTML, and CSS, and basically the purpose of it is to have a recipe website where you can look up recipes, add your own recipes, or find the ingredients and how to make a recipe. So you can see our homepage is fairly simple. We want it to be really easy for someone to navigate as soon as they show up. There's two things you want to do. You want to browse or create a recipe. So if we go to browse recipes, we are brought to a list of all the recipes that exist within our website's database. Now this list could get a little long, so we put in this functionality where you can sort by the time of day. We call that category. So if we switch to breakfast, hit save, we are only going to see recipes that you could make for breakfast. All of these are dynamic in the sense that we can click on the recipe itself to get to its show page, and we can click on the author to see other recipes they have made. So I'm going to start by clicking on the recipe, and in this recipe show page we illustrate a picture of what the recipe should look like, directions on how to make it, category, which is breakfast, the ingredients and the amounts respectively on how to make this recipe, the total calories, and at the bottom we have some reviews from other users, kind of give you an idea of how good this recipe is going to be. So let's go ahead and go back to our home page, and we want to create a recipe, so we're going to click on this button. Now this brings us to a login page because you can't create a recipe unless you are logged in as a user. So rather than log in, I want to show you guys our create user functionality. So we're going to sign up, and here we're just going to make up a random user. We can call them user, a name of user, password user. We'll skip this one for now. And you can see we got some validation errors here. It says a password must be longer than 8 digits and the username must be longer than 4 characters. So this is to ensure that our users have a bunch of different usernames and that our passwords are a little bit harder to guess. So the actual name can stay the same, but for username, let's make it username. For password, why don't we just make it password? Now this is a pretty cool functionality where you can add an image URL for your profile picture. So I actually have one saved and I'm going to pull it up, put it in here, and this is going to be the image that is tied to your actual profile. So if we hit create new user, you're brought back to the home page, and now you see we appear up here in our nav bar. So now we can click on ourselves, which is username. Here's our little picture of ourselves, our name, user, and you can see our recipe list is empty because we haven't built any. So we have our user, we're going to go back home and we're going to create a recipe. So it's pretty simple how we can do this. We're just going to type in the name of the recipe. Let's call it chicken marinara. Category, I'd say that would be a dinner. Description, delicious meal. We don't really have to go crazy on that. We could just say chicken and flour for now. If we want to upload a picture, we can drag another link into there. I have a picture, but it is not of chicken, but that's okay. We're going to go ahead and use this link anyway so that you guys can see the functionality. So here's our picture. We can copy that link, paste it right in there, and when we create recipe, it will bring us to, as soon as the internet catches up a little bit. Great, it'll bring us back to our user show page, and we have a list of recipes. Now you can see chicken marinara appears on there. And if we were to click on it, not the right picture, but that's okay. We have our recipe, our directions that we added, and ingredients. Now, let's say we wanted to edit this recipe, maybe we wanted to add another ingredient. We can just as easily go to the edit page, and if the description doesn't really fit, delicious meal, let's make it a little more accurate and call it chicken with marinara sauce. And we can submit, and you can see here our directions are changed to chicken with marinara sauce. And finally, if we really don't like this recipe, or we found maybe a better way to cook it and we want to scrap it, we can delete the recipe. and you'll see we no longer have recipes. I want to point out that if we go to our homepage and browse recipes, you cannot delete a recipe that you did not create. So you see there's no edit and no delete button on these recipes because we did not make these. Another functionality I'd like to point out is our nav bar at the top. You notice that it's the same no matter what page we're on: homepage, recipes, login. The only thing that does change is that your name and the logout option are going to appear up here. And like I said before, your name will take you to your profile page, and logout will just take you home. And if you want to log back in, you just go ahead and log back in. So I'd say some of the toughest challenges we faced with this were creating the validations. We have another validation on login actually, where if you don't exist, so we'll make a user who doesn't exist, then you can't technically log in. It calls it an invalid login. So what we did there was we just built out some validations in our models, and then later we referenced them in our controllers and displayed them in our ERBs. I would say that was probably the toughest part of this project. Otherwise, that is the functionality of today's meal.